Hey, second button, for sure. Approval of the minutes from the past meeting. I love them. You do them so well, Peg. I
Did you
actually
read
read them
them?
this time. Yes, I love them. Motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There's no mayor, so there's no communication unless you have something to say for the mayor.
On her behalf.
Public speak, nothing. So let's do new business. $3,000 for the building department personnel services. A fat chance I'm gonna approve this. What is it?
$3,000 for the building inspector's personnel services.
That clears it.
Is this to cover for originally
There was
his illness originally?
there was some absences in the beginning of the year, and there were
Say that word again?
absences
Oh.
in the beginning of the year, and we had alternate inspectors in. So, you know, now that the end of the year is coming, there's no money left to finish the year.
So do you pay a premium for the ones that come in when people are out sick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're still paying the ones who are not here.
On top of it all.
Because they're on medical leave or whatever leave they're on.
They're on leave, yeah.
I don't know what happened to my $200,000. Any questions from the counselors on this? Pretty straightforward.
No.
Take a motion.
Motion to approve the appropriation of funds from free cash to building inspector personnel services in the amount of $3,000.
Second. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye. Next one is the appropriation for $70,000 for snow and ice deficit. Does this cover us completely, Melissa?
Yes, so that means.
That's
we're gonna-
nice.
We'll go into next year with, you know how in the past,
We've had it.
you have to raise it right at the front of the
Sure.
budget. So it's, this will cover the deficit that we've spent so far this year. You know, all the snow emergencies that you've signed in this committee. So, so we should be good. And then, so we start off next year not in the hole.
It's gotta be the lowest deficit we've had in a long time.
Well, you know, it was a very mild winter compared to prior years. And also, as you know, last year we did raise the snow and ice line.
Were you required to raise that line?
No, but of course,
You decided to do so, so we weren't hit with a big deficit.
well, right, but also the con of raising the line is that once you raise the line, the expense line for snow and ice deficit, that means that you must fund it at that level every year going forward after that, or you're not allowed into snow emergency. So you don't want to raise it to your worst year ever, you want to raise it to your best.
Likely.
No.
Your best.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because otherwise it's there and you can't move it to any other place, even in
Oh.
May. And you can't go into snow emergency if you decide 1 year for it to be $200,000 and the next year for it to be $100,000. Well, then they won't allow you to they won't allow you to deficit spend if you purposely do that to yourself.
Oh.
And
So-
so if you raise it to 200, you gotta keep it at 200 ad infinitum forever?
Correct.
Okay. Well, the other question I had, is there anything left in free cash, or is this the last expenditure?
There will be a little bit left in free cash to roll over.
It'll roll over as more
like-
free cash.
Yeah, 165 unless something else comes up.
Mhm.
We say, hurry up, do a quick transfer.
So what is typically in free cash? Do you have a set amount?
No, free cash is determined, it's determined by when we close the end of this fiscal year. So if there's any remaining in the, in free cash, it sort of rolls to the next year's fund balance.
Okay.
Any surpluses in any budget lines that don't get expended rolls to free cash. Any, you know, we estimate revenue. If a revenue comes in higher than we anticipated that will roll to free cash.
Okay.
And then there are things to take away from free cash, like
Okay.
deficit accounts, grants that have not been fully reimbursed at the end of the year, that sort of thing. And there is a whole formula that comes out when free cash is done, and Valerie puts in that paperwork, and we typically have it. We typically have it in the fall, and the reason it's the fall is that you have anything that you've submitted for, you're allowed to carry as, so if I spent money on June 25th, and I submitted to the state that I wanted my reimbursement for that, I have until September 30th to receive those funds to count it as not deficit spent.
Okay.
So we don't typically file until about mid-September, when we know that everything we could possibly receive is in. And so sometime in the fall, Valerie will submit all the paperwork to the state, and they'll say, you know, this is your fund balance going forward, these are your positives, these are your negatives. And it's more complicated than I'm explaining, but there's many moving parts, but in general, it's, you know, what did you have in your fund balance, plus any excess revenue, less any deficits.
Okay.
And last year, we had to take a lot of snow and ice deficit out of it come the fall, because we were pretty far.
Last year, we funded snow and ice from free cash at this time last year.
Because we had enough left, and it was a few $100,000, wasn't it? As I recall?
It was, but last year, you recall that part of the reason we had such a high free cash is that we had a big tax settlement.
Big tax settlement, yeah.
Yeah, that we, don't anticipate. We don't typically have a lot of tax title in these years.
So how much is left? I'm sorry.
165.
Yeah.
So as of last week, we spent $500,000, so it must be like 665-ish. It was funded-ish.
It's not funded.
Oh, well,
It was
okay.
it was 971, and we can give you, I can send you the free cash paperwork from last year. You can kind of
Follow it.
Follow it.
The bouncing ball, yeah. Okay, that'd be good.
and then we'll get the same paperwork in next
September?
fall. Well, probably October.
Okay.
Probably October.
Okay. Got it.
Any other questions? Joe, you have anything? This is the free cash for the snow and ice deficit. This completely clears us. As we did last
It mustn't have been that bad this year, right?
It wasn't too bad.
Comparatively,
year. 70 over, what was our budget for snow and ice originally?
It was 2, I think.
200?
I don't recall.
Which, before you came in, she explained that we can never go below that, or we can't, so we always have to budget 200 coming
Right.
forward?
And I think if we budget more, then we always have to budget that amount, right? That's why you play that funny.
They went up a little bit, but if it's less, that goes into free cash if we don't spend it.
Right, if it
So we don't
were-
lose the money, we just
So if
can't
for some-
transfer.
For some reason, this becomes the equator, and we don't get snow anymore,
Mhm.
then, it'll roll.
Okay. Anything else, guys? Take a motion?
Make a motion that we move 70,000 from free cash to snow and ice deficit.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Last one is 200,000 in stabilization. We don't mind that. This is the 165 that was left in free cash is after this, of course. What does this give us in stabilization, general and capital?
Okay, after, assuming you voted in, it would bring the regular stabilization to 1.6 million and the capital stabilization to 730.
Okay. So what's good about this is bonding agents love to see us with this kind of savings account. I guess they decide we're stable, so they give us a good bond rating. So this is excellent. Anytime we can do this, you never know when you're going to have this huge emergency. We need a new fire truck because it'll burn down in a fire.
Right, and you can't always count on free cash, like it fluctuates.
You don't know if it's going to be
Yeah.
around.
Is that the only place you can draw from to put in stabilization? I would imagine it is.
Well, that's all that's left, yeah.
Some communities will budget for it, but that means you're assuming, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't use that money for anything else.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't pull from stabilization for capital, I don't think, but is there a plan to do capital improvement? When you say capital stabilization,
We
is she
did.
using that for
Yeah, so
Capital,
we
like-
did use some this year. We used 45,000
All
for
right.
the park building. And the reason we set up the capital stabilization so that it was sort of planned, designed to invest in our infrastructure and capital needs because, you know, that one's designed more for planned spending and whereas the other one's is more emergency spending. I mean, they both can be used for either or, but, you know, it's like either we're gonna buy the truck or we're gonna put money in capital stabilization and buy the truck next year, you know, cause maybe we buy it in two parts, you know, 50,000
Okay.
for the truck versus,
We need it now.
So does she, or do you usually plan, if you're gonna plan next year's budget, I don't know, if I didn't look, but is there capital spending in there that is coming out of this budget next year?
No, capital, you know, the capital, requests are submitted,
Wow.
in the fall.
Right.
And then, we fund them either from free cash, from the capital stabilization, and then we started a few years ago, the borrowing for general fund, capital spending, so that we would have it sort of set up in the budget as $50,000 a year versus 300,000 a pop. So,
Mhm.
we bought, several years ago, an ambulance and a, dump truck,
Mhm.
and they will be paid off in 17. So if we keep with that plan of about $100,000 in borrowing for larger vehicles, then we should be buying something, not necessarily the same things, but something else in 17 for the first payment to be in 18.
So that's for the borrowing. So-
Right? It's a way to put,
Do you need reauthorization for that every time we do it?
absolutely, we
Yeah,
will.
I thought so. Okay.
And what is that called, borrowing what?
But it's bonding or state house notes.
It's
So just to
bond-
get like a car loan, except our car loans are kind of hefty.
It's to spread the cost of a very expensive item over a few years instead of just hitting it all at once.
Yes.
That's what I recall we set that up for.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, we
it's-
could buy a $300,000 fire truck or something, but then that really kills stabilization, really goes down a lot. So
Right.
You
this
can't do
way
anything else if you deplete it, right? So
Right.
you borrow so that,
Right, so
For the
that's-
big ticket items.
Right, and then it sits, I mean, it sits in the budget as part of, you know, a lot of our borrowing is based on, overrides. This is not, this is supposed to be incorporated into our everyday operating costs, but for things that, that we can't just buy. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's not a $50,000
Right.
car, it's a $300,000 vehicle.
okay.
Is the bonding paid out of capital stabilization or a general fund?
General fund.
General fund, okay.
So this is, you know, so when we go to buy that $300,000, we might take part from there and borrow the rest.
I see. Okay.
So the three sources for capital, free cash, capital stabilization, and bonding. And the aim was at maybe $50,000, you probably try to take from the first two, but a bigger $300,000, you look ahead to bond it over a period of time, is that what the strategy tends to be?
Right, because otherwise you just end up buying the small vehicles and the really big vehicles, I mean, how do you?
Yeah.
How do you buy them
Right.
when you can afford a few
A
$100,000?
lot of little pickup trucks.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
the big pickup truck, wasn't that a few $100,000?
yes.
And fire truck, my God. The
The
fire truck we
ambulance are about
got,
$300,000 if I
the
recall.
fire truck was $750, but I think we got federal money with that one.
Well,
The
yeah, I
ladder
haven't
truck.
bought a fire truck since I've been here, which
So,
just means.
I think we got one. We got one.
We got some
I got
old
one.
fire
Doing
trucks.
the
ladder truck,
the
wasn't it?
ladder truck, it was a big price, but I think we got a lot of federal money for that.
Yeah. But ambulance come up every 5 to 6 years.
They kind of pay for themselves with their fees in a sense, I guess. But
At least they don't lose money.
in a sense. No, she's biting her tongue. No, they don't. Okay. Any other questions on this? I love it when we save money and put it in a savings account.
I know, it's awesome.
Whose turn to make it? I'll do it. I move that we approve a supplemental appropriation request for $200,000 from free cash to be appropriated to the general stabilization 100 and the capital stabilization 100,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. These are already on the docket for public hearing coming up next week. Old business, well, the new business is a review of the budget, but that starts next week. Is everybody okay with those dates now, you two?
Uh-huh.
And you're here, right, Mel? All right, the other thing is this simply puts into ordinance the salaries that we approved. Any further discussion on this?
I did find, I inquired on Agawam, and I thought population was similar to ours. They're 28,000.
So they're like Northampton.
But they get $10,000, and they get health insurance, and they get a pension.
That's what JP was talking about last time.
It's hard for me to do that. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
we don't need that. I mean, all of us, did we run to get paid? I don't think so. If you put it at 10 grand, people are gonna run. But I question their motives. This isn't supplemental income, but, you know, 4 grand isn't so bad. It is a $12,000 hit on the budget in 2018. That's when it starts. No other comments?
No
We've-
other
We've already
Did you hear
voted
anything
this.
from anyone
Nobody
after you
said
announced it? No.
Nobody said anything. That's why I did it. And I'm gonna ask for a public hearing on these ordinances for July, so we're not putting them on top of the budget, because we have until December 31st to pass this. So I'm gonna do the public hearing for July, is that all right? Okay, no further discussion, so that ends our meeting. Anything else? We have the meetings next week and the following week for the budget. Anybody have anything else? I move we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.